Well, delighted to be here for the Eurogroup meeting and ECOFIN tomorrow. We've important discussions on the work programme for 2025. Obviously an important context as well on Capital Markets Union, continued focus on competitiveness within the European system, strengthening the fiscal position, which is obviously important for many member states. And from an Irish perspective, it's making a strong contribution, ensuring that we can promote more simplification, cutting red tape, and this is a broader discussion that we're having across the European system, in a positive bilateral meeting with the German finance minister, where we discussed what the opportunities will be around simplification and trying to drive that in the context of a more competitive European and global system.
You're going to attend a dinner tonight with ECOFIN finance ministers. One of the discussions will be on transatlantic relations. What message will you be bringing to that? Because there have been growing calls from some to take a softly approach, from others to kind of show the EU's hand more, particularly on tech regulation. What's Ireland's position?
Well, Ireland has a very strong and positive relationship with the United States, and today we'll be congratulating Donald Trump on his inauguration following his election. We obviously have a really important bilateral economic relationship with the United States, which relate €1 trillion is the overall economic value between both the US and Ireland. We value free trade and international trade, and we want to promote that as a core European value which benefits all citizens across the European Union. Our Irish companies employ over 100,000 people in the United States, and we need to ensure that all citizens, whether in the EU or US, benefit from better and stronger international trade, and we'll be reflecting that context in terms of a broader discussion. Obviously there are downside risks if tariffs are advanced, and that's why we want to have very constructive and early engagement with the US administration and ensure that the European system reflects that in their engagement with the incoming Trump presidency.
For appeasement rather than like retaliation or preparedness?
Well, I think both the EU and the US have both benefited from the strength of our trading relations, and that's the important context to all of this. That's the historic trend which has benefited and lowered costs for citizens, produced and facilitated more products and services in terms of companies promoting innovation, and also the value system that the EU and the US have held together when it comes to international trade, and obviously Ireland has been at the centre point of that in our growth story over many years. So we'll be reflecting that and ensuring that there's constructive engagement with the incoming US administration.
Minister, on one of Trump's main plans, which would be to try and get companies based overseas to relocate back to America. Obviously, the pharma industry in Ireland is huge. There would be concerns that a lot of, while they wouldn't be relocating, the large facilities, they could relocate things like where the intellectual property is based, basically. And as a result, significant amounts of corporate tax revenue could, pretty quickly move from the pharma sector in Ireland to be domiciled or whatever in the US. Like, how big a concern is that? And then secondly, is the government in kind of dialogue or preemptive dialogue with a lot of the big pharma groups in Ireland about their plans or potential plans?
So on your first question, obviously based on some of what was outlined during the election campaign, there are increased risks when it comes to potential tariffs or changes within the United States administration, and that has an important context as an open trading economy in an Irish context, and that's why we're being very careful. If you look at the programme for government, promoting economic stability and ensuring that we continue to run significant budgetary surpluses to withstand any adjustment that could be required in the context of a significant shift in corporation tax. We know that there is overall volatility of corporation tax receipts. That isn't something that's changed because of a new US administration, and that's there because there's a concentration risk with the small number of companies which reflect a large portion of our corporation tax receipts. Some of it's connected to pharma, to tech and to other areas of our economy. So we're cognizant of that, and that's why the two long-term funds were established. We're recommitting ourselves to those in terms of our core economic policy. I've had certain engagement with the business community as well. And I think a lot of companies domiciled in Ireland take a longer view than one particular administration, and that's another context to this. But clearly, if intellectual property is moved, that could have consequences for corporation tax, and that's why we were very clear during the election campaign that we would adjust overall tax and expenditure plans if the economic position of our country changed, and we need to be flexible and agile in that in a more uncertain international environment. And that's why ensuring we anchor ourselves in fiscal discipline is important when we reflect wider budget plans over the next number of years.
Minister, on that, before the election, you had said that a new government might seek to resubmit the EU's medium-term fiscal structural plan to the EU. Do you intend to do that? Because it's kind of more of the same in terms of ministers and the government. But as you say yourself, the context has changed. We have Trump now, threatening all sorts of things. Does that plan need to be revisited?
There will be a new medium-term fiscal plan developed by the incoming government. We discussed that during government negotiations, and we plan to submit a new medium-term fiscal plan at the same time as we publish our summer economic statement, which obviously sets out the long-term forecasts for the Irish economy. And we'll spend the next number of months trying to work through new ambition on capital spending and infrastructure delivery in our economy, which was an important focus during the election and during the programme for government discussions. That'll have to be reflected in the overall net expenditure position that we'll have in our medium-term fiscal plan. And we'll also have to see what the latest forecasts will be in the summer if there are changes, for example, to the international trading environment, or what are the downside risks to changes to international trade, which may occur or may not occur. So we need to have, I suppose, a balanced assessment of that over the next number of months, and that will allow us to submit a new medium-term fiscal plan, which will provide, medium-term certainty on tax and expenditure plans, but also anchor the new Irish government in fiscal discipline, which is important to manage the economy in the medium term.
Minister, just on the Occupied Territories Bill, so we've heard that it's likely going to be, a new piece of legislation is going to be put forward that's amended and not the Occupied Territories Bill reworked in its current form. I suppose, what's your view on that in the context of the economic headwinds of the new Trump administration? Do you believe would you be wary of that being rushed out, given that it may have knock-on effects for US multinationals' kind of view of Ireland and the US administration's view of Ireland? Is that something that we need to kind of tread carefully with now in this new reality?
The programme for government sets out the overall political direction around the Occupied Territories Bill, and there were legal and constitutional considerations on the existing draft bill, which was published by Senator Black, and we were very clear in the previous engagement with Senator Black that the bill as currently drafted would require a very significant amendment, and that follows on from what the Taoiseach said on yesterday on a potentially a new draft bill coming forward from the government side, which would be drafted in a way that would meet obviously the broader legal and constitutional questions that are there. But it's something we've outlined in the programme for government, and it's something that I expect a new administration to get working on.
Just on Wednesday we have a new government in place. Can we assume that you're going to public expenditure and you'll do the switch with Pascal Donoghue? He'll go back to finance?
That's a good question. I'm not privy to where different our respective ministers will go. I'm always willing to serve in whatever position I'm asked to serve in a new government, but obviously the incoming Taoiseach Micheál Martin will make decisions on a new cabinet, and happy to serve in any role.
Would you prefer a finance brief related?
I'm happy to serve in whatever role I'm asked, and I think it's any elected representative would say the same, and I'm always willing to serve and make a positive contribution.
And do you believe the discussion around Michael Lowry's support of the government, and then the issues with the super junior ministry roles and that allowance being restored, has kind of got the government off on the back foot? Look,
I think the broader focus for the Irish public is that we set out to are stalled and having a strong, stable government managing the economy in a way that continues to promote growth, jobs and opportunity, and then we get to work on driving new ambition on housing policy, for example. Real focus now in the new programme for government on making a real difference when it comes to intervention for people with disabilities. That was a significant issue during the election campaign. Greater support for carers, and they're the real issues that I think the broader public are focused on. And obviously we've a fragmented political system, and we sought to deliver a majority, and we obviously Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael working together, and independents were the willing group that wanted to form a government with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and we discussed policy with other political parties, and we've managed to form a common programme with regional independents, of which there are 7.
Can I just clarify on the US? Is Ireland opposed to retaliatory tariffs by the EU?
Well, I think the primary context has to be promoting trade, promoting that openness and that relationship that has built our two collective economies, whether it's individual member states or whether it's the US economy, which benefits from that bilateral ties. And I think it's re-emphasising that as the starting point of any discussion on trade. I think we need to be careful that we don't get into a tit-for-tat of retaliatory measures and protectionism, which will add significant costs and burdens for many European and indeed US citizens. And we're working to promote the context of trade as something that we all need to value, promote, and enhance in those discussions as they'll happen over the next period. Okay,
Great.
Thanks everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.